Welcome everyone to this CELPIP Speaking Part 1 Giving Advice Analysis. Now I'm just here in the Speaking Part 1 section of the CELPIP Library. And before we get started, I do want to remind you that Part 1 Giving Advice has more focus on CLB 7 or higher. What does that mean? That means that if you need to get CLB 7 or higher, then you need to do well in this part. This is where you need to demonstrate your knowledge because the topics are a little bit more difficult, right? Giving advice is more difficult. And also, you need to speak for a longer time, a minute and a half. So that's why this question is more difficult. Now, lower levels, you should try to speak for this part, of course, but this part won't affect your final score so much like speaking part 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, those parts are more for lower levels. And part 1, 6, and 7 are more for higher levels. Okay, that's what that means. So, also we have this great Speaking Part 1 Tips and Strategies video. That video will give you more information about how you can answer the question, and just some strategies that you can use for answering the question more effectively. Some of the strategies that I will be using myself, okay? So for today's example, we're going to be doing an example called job promotion, okay? Let's get started. So we are going to be doing now a CLB 7 to 9 example, okay? And this lesson has 4 sections, okay, of course, this video, but also has really great vocabulary building, which I strongly recommend, and grammar, which will really help you. Let's look at our question here. So, our question. So, it says preparation time 30 seconds, speaking time 1 minute and a half. Your friend's company is offering promotions. So your friend is interested in impressing the boss to get the promotion. Advise him or her on what he or she could do to impress the boss to get the promotion. Okay. So we want to get a promotion. Don't we all love a promotion? Yes. That's great, right? So then everyone, about part 1 giving advice, like I said, for this part, it's very important. The complexity is 7 or higher. Okay, again, that's because we have a longer speaking time, more difficult question, and also we require more vocabulary knowledge or more ideas. Now, about grammar, we need to be really trying to use conditionals and modals, particularly modals of suggestion, okay? So we're going to try to use those a lot. And of course, we need to try to use all of our time and also try to give a complete response. How do we give a complete response? Well, for CLB 7 to 9, I think it requires introducing the question, giving an idea, giving examples, giving another idea, giving some examples, and then concluding. Okay? That would be enough. And that's the kind of strategy that I'm going to use. Okay? So let's go over to my board here. All right. So we want to give our friend advice on how to impress the boss to get the promotion. All right. So let's start by introducing the question. Okay. If I had to advise my friend about how he could impress his boss to look good for a promotion, I'd make some important suggestions. Okay, so I've decided that it's going to be my male friend. Okay, sometimes they tell you if it's a boy or a girl, but we'll just say a boy this time. Okay? Now, also notice here that I'm introducing the question indirectly. Indirectly. If I had to advise, if I had to, okay, you could answer directly. For example, hello, Peter. I want to tell you about how you could impress your boss to look good for a promotion. You could start like that. It doesn't really affect your score, but I do think that indirectly speaking is better for part one, okay? Also, I want to remind you about our color coordination, okay? So, blue is going to be our structure and sequencing, very important for higher levels. We need to organize and connect our answers very well. And the red is going to be our main grammar forms. We're using modals. There we go. We're using modals. And good start, conditional and modals, which we said are important. So let's get to our first idea. First of all, I'd suggest that he should get in touch with his boss and ask for some feedback on his productivity and skills. Good idea. So again, we sequence. What's the first idea? So in here we have a modal, should get in touch with. Now, get in touch with, very good expression. That means connect, speak with the boss, but get in touch with is a good way to express that idea of speak to your boss in a more expressive way. And ask about some feedback. Feedback, get like a review. We could even say performance review here on his productivity and skills. Okay, so we have the idea. Let's remember, everybody, we don't want to over-explain. Higher levels, they know how to give an idea directly or shortly. Get in touch with his boss and ask for some feedback on his productivity and skills. Stop. Because now we need to explain either. This sounds to me like an example, so I would try to explain here. Why is it good to do this? Well, this would be good because in this way, so very good sequence here. Very good sequence. In this way, his boss would recognize that he's really trying to improve his skills and become a dedicated worker. Very good explanation. By speaking to the boss and asking for a feedback or performance review, the boss would recognize, would understand that he really wants to improve his skills and he wants to become a dedicated worker. You want to be a dedicated worker for this company. You want to work hard. You're dedicated, committed. Okay? So, very good start. And again, stop. Idea, explanation, stop. We don't need to explain more. Let's get to our next idea. All right? Another good idea would be to work harder on his projects by offering to work overtime and lending a hand whenever needed. Okay, another really good idea here. So, working harder on his projects. How? How can you work harder on your projects? Using a by phrase or prepositional phrase, it's called by doing this. It's a very good way to explain. Instead of saying, for example, he could work overtime, we can just say, work harder on your projects by offering to work overtime and by lending a hand whenever needed. When we use a prepositional phrase with by, the verbs are in gerund form. By offering, by lending. Okay? Very good. This is called a prepositional phrase. By doing something. How can you do that? By doing this. Very good way to explain. And also, I've put this one here, these ones in purple, because these are good phrases that we can use. Lending a hand. Instead of help, lending a hand. Good example. Okay. So, looks like we gave an idea, we gave an example. Now let's explain again. This would be great because in this way, so you notice how these two are kind of the same, right? Because those are connectors, they're sequencing. And we are trying to explain why this would be good. Why is this idea good? Why is this suggestion good? So that's why we're using this expression, okay? In this way, the boss would see that he's really committed to his job, reliable, and hardworking. Very good explanation. The boss would see, the boss would recognize. So over here we said dedicated. Over here we're saying committed to his job, reliable, dependable, you can trust me, and of course, hardworking. Another very good idea to show about hard work, okay? So we've said two ideas here, idea, explanation, and actually, I think now we can go to the conclusion, or we should always think about time, okay? Now, I'm going to say that about, I'm going to say something about that later, but knowing myself, I would like to give another idea because higher levels, you should be able to give another idea, okay? What do we have here? Last but not least, I think that he should attempt to communicate effectively to his boss as much as possible by sharing information on the job, projects, and the workplace. Okay, so you want to demonstrate or you want to show to your boss that you really care about the company because you're sharing information. Okay, so you're telling your boss about the job, how the projects are going, and what you think of the company. So you're basically trying to impress your boss by showing that you care. Very good idea. Notice this one is just one idea. I think that's good. And now let's close. Overall, I think the best advice would be to work as hard as possible, finish all your projects sooner rather than later, and communicate as professionally as possible with the boss. Okay, very good. So basically over here, we just summarized, we gave a summary of what we think are really good ideas. It can be the same ones we said over here. That's not a problem. Okay. Very good example. Now, here we have sooner rather than later. Again, that's a really good expression to use. Just saying quickly, sooner rather than later. Okay. You can say soon, but sooner rather than later is a good expression. Okay. So, to summarize then, everyone, firstly, we organized our answer how we planned it. We introduced the question, we gave an idea, explained, we gave a third idea, even greater, and we summarized. Closing remark. Very strong organization, very strong connection and sequencing. This is really great. And those two combined, if you can do those two well, then you're going to get 7 or higher for sure. Because 7 or higher students, they are able to organize their ideas well. That's very important. Now, secondly, I want to say that we used a lot of good language, particularly modals, like I told you. Could impress, should get in touch with, would recognize, okay? Would see, should attempt. And also we use this really good way of explaining this by sharing information. We used it several times. Over here, I see it. Okay. And over here as well, I see it. Okay. That's a really good way to explain ourselves. Good prepositional phrases, okay? And also, I think that we used some really good expression. Get in touch with, lending a hand, sooner rather than later. And of course, vocabulary, committed, dedicated, okay? Professionally, effectively, using adverbs. Communicate as professionally as possible with the boss. This is really something that higher levels can do, okay? Now, I do want to say that this is for sure, if you can say this answer the way we've done it, it's 9 or higher, okay? I do want to say that 7 to 8s, we don't have to give this third idea. If you can, that's great. But even 7 to 9s, or yeah, this could be 9. It's all about delivery and how you do it all in the end. That's important, okay? Now, for myself, I am going to be including that one. I want to make sure that I get 9 or higher. Okay, and it's about time, right? We have a minute and a half to say this answer. And don't forget, flow and intonation are very important. Delivery and your speech are very important. That's one of the most important factors. Flow and intonation. Slowly, clearly, and continuously. That's how we want to speak, okay? We want to show that we have that flow and that intonation. So while I reread this answer, okay, please follow my flow and intonation, all right? And I'm going to be saying this answer in a minute and a half so you can see how it's done, okay? If I had to advise my friend about how he could impress his boss to look good for a promotion, I'd make some important suggestions. First of all, I'd suggest that he should get in touch with his boss and ask for some feedback on his productivity and skills. This would be good because in this way, his boss would recognize that he's really trying to improve his skills and become a dedicated worker. Another good idea would be to work harder on his projects by offering to work overtime and lending a hand whenever needed. This would be great because in this way, the boss would see that he's really committed to his job, reliable, and hardworking. Last but not least, I think that he should attempt to communicate effectively to his boss as much as possible by sharing information on the job, projects, and the workplace. Overall, I think the best advice would be to work as hard as possible, finish all your projects sooner rather than later, and communicate as professionally as possible with the boss. So everyone, you notice that I did that in about a minute and 10 seconds. So, very good example here. Of course, that's me. All right. Maybe I was going a little bit faster, but I wanted to have good flow. We could definitely speak slower as long as we're speaking continuously. Okay. That's the most important part. So, everyone, to practice. Well, to practice, we have to reread the answer. Okay, let's read it. Let's read it and understand the way it's organized. Let's understand the sentence structure as well. Okay, very important. Let's try and understand how ideas are expressed. Very important. Okay, let's try to understand some of the grammar and vocabulary used. Very good language use here. Okay, And the last part that I recommend is I recommend rereading this answer. You want to try and build this kind of expression and flow and intonation. So let's read it. Let's read it once, twice, 3 times, as many times as you can. The more that you read it, the more that you can speak and express ideas in this way. Okay? For that, everyone, I am going to be leaving the link in the description box to our practice question. Okay? I'm going to be leaving that there so you can practice yourself. And you can practice that answer. As well, you can practice grammar building exercises. Okay, everyone? Very good practice. Yes. This will really help you build your grammar if you need that. And also some vocabulary. Okay, that will really help you. Vocabulary sentence practice. Very good practice. And everyone, don't forget about our CELPIP library, okay? Okay, we have over 50 examples of part 1 speaking, okay? And because you've watched the video all the way till the end, well, with discount code CELPIP79, you can get a 3-month subscription for only $10.99, everyone. $10.99. That's a great deal, okay? Of course, that's for the listening, reading, writing, speaking. So very good, and I strongly recommend it. Everyone, don't forget, practice makes perfect.